Hey, thanks so much for joining us here on 9 News Plus on this, yet again, stormy, or soon-to-be stormy Thursday. I'm 9 News meteorologist Chris Bianchi with Tornado Man, but officially I think your title is meteorologist Cory Reppenhagen joins us now for a little bit of an overview about what you can expect for today. And also, Cory, we do want to start things off I want to start things off by taking a look back on the fact that you've seen a tornado in 6 of the last 8 days. Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, it's been crazy because it's interesting to watch a pattern like this, especially since we haven't had one in a few years, and just to be able to watch Mother Nature produce the things that she's been doing to the state of Colorado lately is just really impressive. And along with the Nebraska Panhandle, it's just been the hot zone, and here we go once again.
Another one today, and today's threat will include the metro area. Last night's threat was mostly north and east of Denver, although those storms got about as far south and west as Fort Lupton. Obviously, our friends up in Fort Morgan, Iliff, Logan, Morgan counties, eastern Weld County just pounded last night, as we were talking about. But want to show you here graphically what we've got in terms of that threat for today. And there's an enhanced risk. This would be a level 3 in orange on a 0 to 5 scale. And Cory, something we've talked about before. We don't normally or often see an enhanced risk for the metro area, but this is already the third one so far this year for the metro area. You mentioned it. Here we go again, right?
Yeah, and it's one of those things that it's not super unusual just because we've had severe weather like this in the past, those patterns, but I think it makes it a little bit more shocking, the fact that we just went through 3 or 4 years of just really low amounts of severe weather. Not a lot of tornadoes, not a lot of hail, not a lot of large hail, especially right along the Front Range. So this is a pattern that does happen, and it's impressive to watch, and I think that we need to really focus on today. I think it's crazy that yesterday it was such a major storm. I mean, a major impact, huge hail all across Colorado, lots of damage, but we can't really take a lot of time to stop and look back just yet, because we're moving straight into another day where we could be looking at large hail once again, a lot of damaging winds.
And in a more populated area.
And it's way shifted towards the Front Range. So when you look at that graphic and you see the orange shade right over the Front Range, I mean, that is pushing deep into populated territory. If we have anything close to what we saw last night with 3 to 4 inch hail, that widespread, I think we could be looking at a major impactful day.
So let's kind of get into the overview to kind of outline this for you. The main concern, I think, Cory, safe to say here, large hail is going to be our big concern. That is the big issue. You don't have the car in the garage or the carport right now. Go ahead and do that at this point. There is a tornado threat. I put it as low, kind of low medium for today, because most of you will probably not be impacted by a tornado. And that said, Cory, this is probably a higher than usual tornado threat than for us for the metro area, right?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, because of how impactful they may be, I think you keep the threat towards the lower end, but the tornadic conditions the parameters are there absolutely today. And I think when the watch comes out, which may happen very soon,
yeah,
it's likely going to be just a tornado watch. And I think much of the Front Range, including Denver, could be included in that tornado watch. And so that alone says a lot about the tornado parameters that are out there, and we could be looking at both types of tornadoes that we often get here on the Front Range. We could have those landspout tornadoes, which happen because there's vorticity or spinning air on the surface interacting with the terrain that we have in the Front Range, and then when the storms form, they pull that spinning air up and form a tornado. And then you also get something like we saw last Thursday, where the storm itself is rotating enough to produce its own tornado, and we call that a supercell tornado. So both of those conditions are possible on the Front Range today, and we saw the supercell tornadoes have the potential to be more powerful, but we've seen land spouts in the past also get up to 100 miles an hour and do EF1 damage as well.
So both different kinds of tornadoes at play, as you mentioned. Kind of want to take a look here quickly and kind of time this out a little bit for us. We're going to start things off with a broad view of Colorado and show you what you can expect. Those first showers and storms trying to get going as we speak in the foothills. Not a ton yet, and if you're joining us right now and kind of planning your day, probably good in the metro area for the next hour or so, I'd say. Come 2, 3 o'clock, that's when we expect the kind of core of those storms to move down into the metro, and then they'll push east, and as they do so, they'll probably intensify. 6, 7 o'clock tonight, it's going to be the eastern plains. Not showing it here, Corey. I'd be kind of curious for your opinion on this, but I do think there's a threat for some storms to linger tonight as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And this computer model also shows about the similar situation where it's almost like a blow through where, you know, a 2 or 3 hour window where there's storms in the metro and then there's nothing else behind it. But the thing that these computer models, even those high resolution ones that we're looking at right there, don't do a good job of is predicting outflow boundaries, which is they're basically little cold fronts that the storms out in front of the metro push back. So the cold front, this mini cold front goes pushing back towards the metro area, and it can spark additional storms. So it's interesting that both those computer models we just looked at do not show that, but I am very cautious, like you, to believe that there could be some action later, you know, beyond the 6 o'clock hour, even on the Front Range, even though these models, they're not showing it right now, and that's important. That's an important factor, but I'm just kind of keep that in the back of my mind.
I agree too. By the way, for those of you at home, the way to think of it is a storm kind of breathes. They ingest warm air. That's what they want, and that's why, by the way, it's sunny outside right now. I'm looking outside our studios here at Spear and Logan.
Yeah.
That sunshine, that to you and I is like an uh-oh. That sunshine, it adds warmth, it adds instability, and storms like warm air, and they don't like the cold air, so they kind of breathe out the cold air. That's why these storms kind of create these little cold fronts. If you stand outside ahead of a storm on a summer day, you feel that rush of cold air. That's the outflow from a storm, but then those outflow boundaries kind of crash into each other. Colder air, it's heavier, it's denser, and that forces the air to rapidly rise, creates more storms. So that's why, I know that's getting a little nerdy there. I promise we're going to get less nerdy there, but the reason I say that is that that's why I think to Cory and I, tonight, there's going to be that threat for some of those storms to linger.
Yeah, so the way I look at it, I utilize the information that the computer models are, you know, showing us right there, and it really does show the scenario where there's a 2 or 3 hour window where the metro is really under fire. So take that as the main piece of information, and then in the back of your mind, you know, if you have something planned at like a 7 o'clock soccer game or baseball game or something, maybe think that is a possibility, but have a plan in case we do have some of those later storms fire up because of those outflow boundaries that you're talking about. I would just kind of take that as a secondary piece of information.
Last night, probably a higher threat for overnight storms. Last Wednesday, the Red Rock storm day, there was a higher threat, but tonight there's a non-zero risk. The main severe storm window will be over the next few hours, and one of the reasons why we're looking at this map, dew points, that's measured the amount of moisture in the atmosphere. The higher this number is, the more concerned we tend to be about severe storms. Not as bonkers of the dew points that we had last week when we were talking about 63, 64, and we were going, hoo boy, we knew that was going to be trouble, but still enough to get things going, right?
Yeah, you're right. That's when the dew points are above 60, that's super frightening for the Front Range. But this is plenty moisture to get some really large hail and tornadoes, because that's the main ingredient here that we have not had over the last 4 years. We've had days where the wind shear is acceptable to create tornadoes. We've had all the other ingredients, instability, cold air aloft, but what we haven't had is just the humidity, the moisture that's in the air, and that has not gone away. And so that is the main ingredient, and that is the reason why we have these multiple days of back-to-back severe weather and such an active period even over the last 10 days.
This will do it, right? Mid-50s dew points.
Mid-50s will absolutely do it. I'm trying to think of, remember May 8th, 2017? I think the dews were in the high 50s that day, and we got baseballs in Colorado Mills. So this is plenty to do it. It's just 60-degree dew points are another level, but when I'm thinking on the Front Range, because of the way the interaction is with our terrain, when the dew points get over 50 in the middle of the day, that worries me.
Yeah, that is certainly going to be concerning. I guess I'm going to close things out and kind of pull up the overall threat map once again here. So as we kind of look ahead to what we can expect here, again, right now the radar is quiet, but that will change in the next few hours. And that sunshine that you're seeing right now, that also will change. So I'm going to kind of zero on in a little bit here on the metro area once again, just because that is going to be the main focal point. Is unlike last night, and it's not to forget about our friends in Logan and Morgan counties. You were up there last night, for example, but the population threat zone for today considerably higher than the last few days.
Yeah, you know, if that storm that hit Akron and Brush and Yuma and those areas last night had happened in the Denver metro area, we'd probably be talking about a storm that rivaled the May 8th, 2017, and that's the type of potential that we have here. So
for today, you think there's that potential?
Yeah, I mean, if we get, I think the state climatologist Russ Schumacher sent out a post this morning that said, in all of the records that he looked through, he had not seen a single day in Colorado history where there were as many 3 and 4-inch hailstone reports. So usually when we get those, it's a pocket, boom, right there, a small area, hopefully not a town, but you get this pocket of baseball to softball 4-inch type hail. But last night they were very widespread. I mean, we had 3 and 4-inch hail reports over 5 different counties, because I think we had one in Weld, Morgan, Logan, Yuma, Washington, Sedgwick. So there was coverage, and that's another thing. That's another thing that I noticed about today is that even though it is very possible that we just get a wave, a 2 to 3 hour window on the Front Range, the one thing I did notice about the characterization of the computer modeling is that they're widespread from all the way from Cheyenne to Colorado Springs. So yeah, that the one statewide computer model that you had up there was showing it. I mean,
this is it here.
So it's not like you can say, okay, well, South Metro is the spot, or Palmer Divide is the spot, or Fort Collins is the spot. It's all has the same probability, from Castle Rock to Fort Collins all the way up. So you see how that kind of the characterization. These computer models don't show you exactly where the storms are going to form, but it shows you these characterization where you're looking at 3 or 4 really large cells and covering a spatial area from all the way from Fort Collins to Castle Rock. So that kind of gets my attention too, because you can have large hail in 3 different major portions of the Front Range.
Interesting point. So maybe more geographic coverage and compared to usual. So that certainly interesting. Cory, I guess as we close things out here, because you got to go out into the weather titan.
It's about time.
It's about time. It's that time. But any final thoughts and about today and what we can expect?
No, I mean, I think the watch is going to be the trigger for emotion today. We've kind of built this up once again, starting early this morning, and even the last couple of days, kind of pinpointing Thursday as a day to watch out for on the Front Range. So I feel like we should be ready. But once you see that watch issued, especially if it's a tornado watch, I think that's going to be the heightened awareness where, okay, from that point on is when we really need to be aware and think about how we're going to go through our day if we're happen to be in line with one of these stronger thunderstorms.
Okay, and main threat, large hail, but Again, a non-zero tornado risk. And I know a lot of you, especially in Highlands Ranch, may be a little bit spooked a little bit by what happened last week. Just worth noting that your chance of getting hit by a tornado are very low, even on a higher risk day like today. But just be prepared. Remember, lowest floor, innermost rooms, away from any windows. Put as many walls between yourself and the outside as possible. Just think about it for 2 seconds right now, where you would go in your house, and you'll be fine. You get into that innermost room, you're gonna be fine. So yeah.
Yeah, and when we're talking about tornadoes on the Front Range, I mean, well, in Colorado, we've never had an EF4 or an EF5 anywhere in the state of Colorado. They've all been 1s, 2s, and 3s. And so
Good point.
when you're thinking about that as a piece of information for your mind and how to be safe, it really does make it simple, where, you know, your basement is the safest place to be. The second best place is just an interior part of a good structure, like even your house, away from windows.
Bathroom, closet.
Right, because when you're talking about an EF3 tornado, you're usually talking you know, the extent of damage is a few exterior walls, a roof, but the interior portion of the home is still intact in an EF3. So basements, you really can be safe if you just take the right action at the right time. Now, that's being said, just because we haven't had an EF4 in Colorado doesn't mean that that's not possible. But if you think about the way that Colorado storms have happened and the potential that we've seen, that's a great information to use, climatology, just to be able to put your mind at ease and know that you can be safe. Where you don't want to be is in a mobile home, a modular home, a car, things that can flip and be crushed. But if you have walls and pipes, that's the place to be.
I guess final bit of advice as we close things out here. Just don't drive for the next couple of hours. If you don't have to, you have the grocery store, I think, can wait. Happy hour certainly can wait. Sorry to break that to you. Well, it's debatable, but
I've still got one more day in my 12-day stretch, and then we'll cut loose.
then Cory and I will be at Chili's. But until then, again, just on a serious note, like the best way to be safe, really, if you're at home, you're going to be fine through this. Yes, you may encounter some damage. Follow those basic protocols now, and you'll be all right.
Yep. Just yourself and your friends, your family. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's all that matters. But and Bones, of course.
Yeah, your pets.
Yeah, your pets, Penny and Bones. But meantime, thanks for joining us here on 9 News Plus. And Cory will be out chasing these storms today. We'll be covering it here in studio and here on 9 News Plus throughout the course of the day as well. So thanks again for joining us here on 9 News Plus, and stay tuned for continued coverage of our severe weather threat for today.